Hi guys, Alex here, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to build a PAF style humbucker. If you're watching this video, you probably haven't built a humbucker before, so the aim of this video is to break it down into simple steps so that hopefully a beginner who's never done anything like this before can follow.
Before anything else, I highly recommend drilling out the slug bobbin to the correct slug size. A lot of slug bobbins come with these too small. If you try to insert the slug into a bobbin like this, it's likely to crack. All of our humbucker kits are pre-drilled, so you won't have to worry about this step. The next step is to cut 4 wires that will connect directly to the windings to about 5 cm lengths. Then strip back about half a centimetre of the insulation from each side. Using 2 different colours here helps a lot. Then we need to thread one of the wires through the bottom bobbin hole into the centre of the bobbin. Then we wrap the winding wire, which is too thin to be picked up by the camera, around the bare end and solder. After it's well soldered, fold some tape over the end to insulate it from the wires that will sit on top. To secure it, push the taped end against the inner wall of the bobbin and wrap a few winds of wire around. Ensure the wind direction is the same as the direction that you intend to wind the whole coil in. Now comes the trickiest part, winding the coil. There's a plethora of different methods you can use to wind a coil. This topic is too expansive to cover in this video and would be more appropriately discussed in a video of its own, possibly in the future. The typical PAF is wound to 5,000 winds per bobbin. I stop every couple thousand to check the coil is building evenly. Next we protect the coil with tape. Cut a length of approximately 20 cm. Position the coil the correct way up and have the coil start wire facing towards you. You want to tape the slug coil end to the right and the screw on the left. Hold the wire against the coil and make a 90-degree angle in it towards the bottom of the bobbin. Put the start of your tape here and wind it around the remainder of the coil. Then we connect the end of the coil to the other wires, using the same method as used for the coil start. Leave about 5 cm of coil wire, as this is enough to work with in the case that the hookup wire connection breaks. After this, we should have a continuous coil between the 2 wires. Using a meter, we should see a resistance of about 3,500 to 4,500 ohms to put it in the PAF territory. If your readings are good, we can now insulate the end of the coil. Using a small length of tape, stick the end wire to be pointing off the end of the bobbin parallel to the start wire. Leaving about 3 cm off the end is usually best. After this, take a length of about 20 cm for the last protective covering to cover all the remaining wire. Now we insert the slugs. Push them in slowly from the back of the bobbin with an appropriate press. A drill press is perfect for this. Then insert the screws into the screw bobbin. Be careful not to slip or you can ruin the top of the bobbins. Now we start the assembly of the pickup. First I like to tin all the wire ends, which makes soldering them a lot easier. Melt some solder onto this corner of the base plate, ensuring it's next to the pole screw holes. Then solder the coil start wire of the screw bobbin onto this. Next, thread the output lead from the bottom of the base plate on the opposite side to the solder joint, but still next to the screw pole holes through the large hole. This lead should be about 40 cm for neck humbuckers and 30 cm for bridge humbuckers. Pull it until it's about 3 cm past the screw coil and base plate connection. Then we can connect the two coil ends together by putting the bobbin side by side and twisting the bare ends together to solder. The next step is to position the metal spacer over the end of the screws and the magnet against this spacer and the slugs. Now we can flip the base plate over onto the bobbins and put it in place. Pay attention that the output lead is sitting flat on the base plate in the gap next to the screw bobbin while doing this. Then the final connection can be soldered. This isn't strictly vintage accurate, but I prefer using heat shrink to the usual tape to insulate the connections. This can be quite fiddly. Now we check for fit. We'll be covering this humbucker, so we want to minimise obstructions for the cover. We start by pulling the output lead back so that there won't be too much excess at the end. Once it's at a good length, solder it directly onto the base plate. Then put it back together to check the polarity. For a pair of humbuckers to work correctly together, we need them to be in phase, or put simply, all the wiring needs to be done the same and the magnet poles need to be in the same direction in reference to the slug and screw bobbins. We can check this with any typical compass next to the top of one of the bobbins and see if it points towards or away from it. I want the slug bobbin to be south, so I want it to point towards the top of the slugs. It doesn't, so I push out the magnet, being careful not to pull any of the wires while doing so, and flip it 180 degrees to reverse it. And finally we grab the plastic spacer and push it in the gap under the slug bobbin. To complete assembly, we insert the baseplate screws through the back of the baseplate and screw them into the bottoms of the bobbins. To prepare the covers, I like to file off the plating where the solder connections are going to be. If you do it at an angle, it's completely invisible and makes the solder joint much easier and stronger. Then install the humbucker into the cover. This can take a bit of prodding to make sure the wires don't get caught. Just don't prod them hard or with something sharp enough that you can break through the insulation and cause shorts on the cover. After the wires are pushed into the cover, ensure the humbucker is firmly pushed in as far as it will go. Usually you can feel it click into place. And the final step is to make the solder connections between the base plate and cover. This takes a lot of heat, solder and patience. After doing this, you can check the end of the output cable to see if the pickup is functional before installing it into a guitar. Check for a resistance of between 7 to 9,000 ohms.